Hi there, welcome to R&B Reviews. Brendan here, doing a review of something Stephen King. I promised something Stephen King this weekend, and I finally got around to doing it. I'm talking about Creepshow. Stephen King written, George Romero, 1982 classic. If you haven't seen Creepshow, shame on you, but I'm also envious of you because you haven't seen one of the greatest horror films ever made yet. The film is very simple. It's pretty much an anthology-type movie. It has 5 separate stories with a prologue and an epilogue that tie into it. The prologue and epilogue involve a little boy who's reading this horror comic book that his father doesn't want him to read, and you see the 5 stories that are in the comic book. The first one is called Father's Day, which is not my favorite one in there. It stars Ed Harris, appears in there, if you know who he is, of well, pretty much think of anything with Ed Harris, like History of Violence. It's one off the top of my head. He's in there before he really got big. He's got a small part, but that one's pretty much about these kids coming together like 7 years after their father was murdered, and they sort of just celebrate Father's Day in his memory, and they're all kind of bitter about it and stuff like that. And there's a nice little Stephen King twist ensues, and the father comes back from the dead to exact revenge upon his bitter, evil children. The second story, The Lonesome Death of Jody Verrill, stars Stephen King as a farmer who finds a meteorite that lands on his property, and he immediately sees the financial gain in it as he can pay off his bank bonds with it. This one, along with another short story, along with another one in the movie, is based on a short story called Weeds, written by Stephen King. I've never read the short story. I'm not sure if it's one of the short story books or not. I've read most of them. I think it was published in a magazine, I believe, a science fiction related one. And that story's really good. It's got great effects, and Stephen King, although I feel he kind of overacts in it, this movie, the overacting really doesn't bother it, because the beginning and ending of each of these short stories sort of begins with like a comic book style image of the movie, and I really like it. Whenever something horrific happens, like all the lights change to like red or blue, and you get this sort of extreme lighting theme exchange thing going on there, and it's meant to be funny too. I mean, this movie shouldn't be taken like deadly serious. I mean, it is really funny, and some of the comedic stuff kind of comes through in Stephen King's little bit. I mean, he's got some funny lines. The next story is called Something to Tide Over, starring Leslie Nielsen as a bitter, vengeful husband who is going to kill his wife and her lover in a very twisted manner by burying them up to their necks in the sand and letting the tide drown them. Ted Danson plays the wife's lover, and Leslie Nielsen is great as a completely just evil bastard bent on revenge. You see the Stephen King twist later on. All I can say is some revenge happens to Leslie Nielsen's character, and the special effects never disappoint. Done by Tom Savini, who did Dawn of the Dead, Day of the Dead. He acted in like From Dusk Till Dawn and Grindhouse. If you don't know who Tom Savini is, look up some stuff. He's done some amazing things. He did all the effects for the original Friday the 13th. The fourth story in Creepshow is The Crate. Anyone who's seen Creepshow, I guarantee you like 95% of them will say The Crate is their favorite one. It's my favorite one. I love The Crate. It scared the crap out of me the first time I saw it, and still manages to surprise me when I still watch it. And it messes with me, and I have a crawl space in my house that gets to me, thinking there could be a crate monster under there. But this professor, he learns from a janitor at school that a strange box has been found under a crawl space in their building in the basement from Antarctica, from an Antarctic expedition, and they're not sure what's in the box. And later on, let's say the unlucky janitor finds out it is a sort of tiny furry monster that just has a bunch of teeth and looks scary as hell. And the professor, played by Hal Holbrook, who is a fantastic actor, decides to use this opportunity, using the monster, to take out his annoying, pestering, just evil and mean wife, played by Adrienne Barbeau of Fog and Escape from New York fame. And pretty much you see how that plays out. I mean, it's a very simple story, but the monster's always in the crate, and you always feel sort of a sense of danger when you see the crate, and Hal Holbrook's character is just trying to cover up these murders, and he's trying to use it to get rid of his wife, and it plays out to be one of the better stories in there. And the crate is also based off of a Stephen King short story he wrote for a science fiction magazine publication, anthology story. It is the best one in there. The scares come up on you, and the monster looks great. It looks scary. It's just got all these teeth, and it sadly sort of overshadows the final part of it, of Creepshow, which I have to look up the name of right now. I believe it's called Yes, They're Creeping Up on You, about a man who's sort of like germophobic. He's afraid of bugs. He's afraid of the outside world. So he has this apartment that's completely like sealed and everything. Like people can't get in. Like it seems very clinical. He's played by E.G. Marshall, and he has this extreme sort of fear of cockroaches. I believe he lives in New York, and the power goes out, and the cockroaches get in, and horror ensues, and it ends with one of the best makeups I think Tom Savini has ever done in his career. It's fantastic and it's creepy, and I don't want to give it away if you haven't seen the movie. And then you get your prologue, Tom Savini cameo in there. Also, I don't believe I mentioned this, but in the prologue and epilogue, the little boy's father is played by Tom Atkins of Fog fame and Night of the Creeps, soon to be coming out on DVD. I'm excited about that. But Creepshow, it's one of those movies that I think a lot of people have seen, but if you haven't seen it, try to find it. It's directed by George Romero, who did Dawn of the Dead, Night of the Living Dead. This is really, I think, his best movie outside of his zombie movies. Monkey Shines is also a great George Romero movie. But it's also nice that Stephen King wrote the screenplay and took a couple of his short stories in there. I mean, 3 of the stories are completely original from his mind. I really like it when Stephen King gets on the screenplays of stuff. I mean, as opposed to someone just adapting his work. And I believe him and George Romero later worked together. I think they worked together on The Dark Half. I know it's based off a Stephen King book and George Romero directed it. But Creepshow, it's one of the best horror films. I mean, it is like sort of a horror comedy. It has a lot of the 50s comic style it throws in there. I mean, it's very colorful whenever horror stuff happens. But it's a lot of fun. Really, there's no better anthology-based movies, I want to say. I mean, maybe Trilogy of Terror, but for me, it's Creepshow. Creepshow all the way. If you haven't seen it, see it. If you have seen it, tell me what you think below in the comments. And thanks for watching this edition of R&B Reviews. Be sure to catch Creepshow.